Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 2 of the Never Wrong, Maybe Right podcast show and YouTube show. And today will be the NFC prediction day. We'll be continuing our NFL predictions for the upcoming 2023 NFL season. And we do have one announcement to make let me share my screen real quick. That way I can get this slideshow up and running. So here's the schedule for us. We do have to make one important change or note is time management. I'm still getting new with all integrated with all the tech stuff. I'm still kind of new to it. We need to reduce the time of these episodes to like basically 30 minutes sharp to be able to get out the amount of content that I want to get out. Whether it's reviewing the week games on Monday, the predictions for Friday, the NBA when NBA comes up as well. So I'm still getting new to it. So we're gonna reduce it to 30 minutes sharp. So that may mean that we're gonna have to cut out a little bit of time for one part, or maybe not talk about a random game at all, or vice versa. Of course, we'll hit all the key points and so forth. So, but without further ado, I don't want to waste too much time. And one other quick reminder: you can find these shows and podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify under the Never Wrong, Maybe Right title. And also, if you want to watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on YouTube as well. So going over the schedule real quick, we have today, Tuesday, obviously the NFC predictions, quarterback analysis, and biggest wild cards for the conference. Wednesday, tomorrow will be the entire playoff and Super Bowl predictions. Thursday, we're still TBD again. We had to, after yesterday's episode, we had to reconfigure some things in the schedule. We're not totally sure how we're gonna work out Thursday yet. Friday will for sure be our NFL season long best bets. That's like win totals, that kind of stuff. Division winners, all that kind of stuff. Award predictions, comeback player of the year, MVP, offensive player of the year, DPOY, all that stuff. And then our favorite player props for the season. Sorry if I'm speaking a little fast. I don't want to go too fast. So the hope is that we'll go 20 minutes for the A block, this first section on the divisions and so forth. About 5 minutes for the quarterback rankings and about 3 minutes for the wild cards and a minute or two to wrap it up. So without further ado, we'll start with the NFC East. One of the best division in the NFC, in my opinion, and one of the top two divisions in the entire NFL. Coming in at first, you can consider it a coin flip, or you might think it's the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have the best roster from top to bottom. The quarterback play concerns me a bit. I am not the biggest Dak Prescott guy. Not that I think he's bad, but I don't know if he's good enough necessarily, especially in the postseason. Regular season, you might get away with some things with, Micah Parsons on defense, the additions on defense, whether that's Stephon Gilmore in the secondary, that sort of stuff. The rookie defensive tackle they took. There's that aspect of it. There's also the aspect of Jalen Hurts being, one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFC. You'll have to find out where he ranks at the end of the episode. So the Cowboys and Eagles should be 1-2 in this division. I'm going to go with the Cowboys because I think the defense is a little bit better. Partially because of the Eagles' losses. They lost Javon Hargrave to the Niners in the interior defensive line. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the secondary to the Lions. Those are two important losses to a defense that already struggled against the pass to a degree last year, which concerns me a bit. And so that's why I'm going to have. And also, do I expect them to go? I think they went 14-3 because they beat the Giants. 14-3. Not necessarily, to be honest. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be a playoff team. But it's more that, and I don't think Jalen Hurts. And now you can make the argument that they could have won 2 more games with Jalen Hurts missing those 2 games, but I don't think that they're as good as like 15-2, like they could have gone last year if Jalen Hurts wasn't hurt. And I don't think Jalen Hurts can play much better than he did last year. So you're almost kind of going off of like peak of them last year. AJ Brown, stud year. Devonta Smith, great year as a wide receiver 2 on the team. They lose Miles Sanders in the run game. They're going to go with Kenneth Gainwell, which might be a slight downgrade there. That's kind of where that is. The Giants, I almost view it as high floor, low ceiling. Daniel Jones, I'm actually not. I don't mind Daniel Jones. He's a guy who is not turnover prone. He's last year he showed the ability to maintain the ball, not turn the ball over as well as often as he did in years past in his career. That's part of it. Obviously, they got Saquon Barkley back. They have a good interior pass rush with Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau in his sophomore year off the edge, Xavier McKinney in the back end. The receivers concerns me a little bit. Can teams stack the box against the Giants? Throw 7 in the box, and then play better against the run game, and then leave Daniel Jones to be more of a passer. Which you'd rather have Daniel Jones be more of the short game manager quarterback where he run read options, zone reads, that kind of stuff, RPOs. The concern is if teams stack the box and force them to pass, that's where my concern with that comes in. And then the Commanders, quarterback play. I actually don't hate Sam Howell at the spot, but I think they lack overall talent. Their offensive line is not great. The Giants do have a good line, by the way. I will mention that. Stud left tackle and Andrew Thomas. But the Commanders, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, kind of just mid-tier running backs, nothing crazy. McLaurin and Dotson are nice on the outside. No real tight end force. Oh, also the Giants added Darren Waller too, which could be a huge addition. I forgot to mention that. Still doesn't change my mind though. I want to see him with an outside threat. Can Jalen Hyatt be that guy? I don't know. If he does turn out to be that guy, maybe this turns into a 10-win team rather than an 8-win team. But the Commanders, defensive line, they have a good defensive line. Hopefully Chase Young can come back. He was kind of dinged up last year. Can he play all 17 games this year? Along with Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. They did draft that corner. I want to say, is it St. Juice? I forget his name. The rookie corner, to help with the back end. Just a slight lack of talent compared to the rest of the division. That's why I have them at 7 and 10, and what I think is still the best division of football. They might be a 9-win team in a different division. So it's not a knock on the Commanders. It's more of a praise for the other 3 teams in the division. NFC South. This division is not very good. I'm going to be honest. The only reason I have the Saints winning this thing is because they have, in my opinion, by far the best schedule, the easiest schedule. Like, let me read you some of these opponents that they play. To start, they have the Titans, the Panthers, the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Patriots, the Texans, the Jags, who are going to be good, the Colts, who are terrible, the Bears, who are not very good, the Vikings, who are Falcons, who are Lions, who were going to be pretty good, I would believe, Panthers, Giants, probably pretty good, but you never know. Rams, not very good. Buccaneers, not very good. And Falcons, You don't see any of the, Chiefs, Eagles, who's the, Bills, Jets, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals. None of those teams. 49ers, none of those teams, they got the easiest divisions to play. They got the AFC South and the NFC North, not great divisions. So that's partially why I would expect them to do good. And then it kind of trickles down. I think the Falcons' overall talent outweighs the Panthers because of the getting rid of DJ Moore. Because Bryce Young will be in his rookie year. I don't think Bryce Young will be bad. I don't think he'll be great. I think he'll be kind of middle of the road, and then expect a year or 2 leap from him. But the Falcons, I think they have overall more talent. With AJ Terrell on the outside, Grady Jarrett up the middle. And so along with, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, the quarterback, I'm concerned. Desmond Ridder is not very good. The Panthers could end up going 9 and 8 this year. It would not shock me if the Panthers and Falcons kind of in a flip flop there. The Buccaneers are going to finish last by far because no Tom Brady. Baker Mayfield's not great. They finished first place last year, so they get the first place division opponents this year. They play the Eagles. They play the Chiefs? Sorry, I had this up earlier. They play the Eagles, they play the Lions, they play the Bills, they play the 49ers, they play the Jaguars. They play teams that the rest of the division aren't playing, which concerns me. And so that's why I think the Buccaneers will easily finish last. I'm giving them 5 wins out of respect for the overall talent besides the quarterback position. Still Mike Evans, still Chris Godwin, still the linebacking core of Devin White and Levante David. You got Antoine Winfield on the back end, Vita Vea as a nose tackle. There is talent around there. Slightly aging with Levante David and Vita Vea. Mike Evans is pushing 30. He might even be 30 at this point. Chris Godwin, towards ACL 2 years ago. So it's just kind of aging talent is a concern there for me. But nonetheless, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, they're not gonna be very good. Going to the NFC North. This is the classic. No team will be great, but the fun division everyone wants to watch, or at least I'm interested in watching. You have the Lions, who I think line up one of the. I think it'll be a competitive race between the Vikings, Packers, and Lions. Because you had the Vikings, who were, I mean, I think they were 9-0, 9-1, 10-1 at one point last year in one-score games. Do I see that repeating again this year? Absolutely not. No chance. Packers, new year, no Jordan Love and no Aaron Rodgers this year. Still overall, same talent. You got Christian Watson on the outside. You got Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon still. You got David Bakhtiari, who's a respectable left tackle for Jordan Love's blind side. You have Jair Alexander, DeAndre, whatever his name is, Campbell. Are Preston Smith, are they going to be great? No. Do I think that Jordan Love is better than people may think? Yes, I do. Especially considering they're playing against the Vikings, who don't have a great defense, not a great secondary. The Bears, who had by far, by miles and away, the worst defense last year. And the Lions defense, who gets lit up every time, but they just score enough points. That's how the Lions win games. The Lions are finishing first, in my opinion, because the overall talent on offense. I think that because of the fact that Jared Goff actually had an exceptional touchdown to interception ratio last year, that's where it gives me the confidence that he could be a game manager and still put up about 30 points that they were put up last year. They put up 29 points a game last year. Only reason they lost is because their defense was terrible last year. But I believe that they have the ability to outscore their opponents enough, and they've shown consistently over the last few years to have a good scoring offense. Now you can make the argument that, oh, well, they were down in these games and they got charity points at the end because teams were just playing conservative because they were up by multiple scores. That's a fair argument. But I don't think that we saw them go. I think it was 6-1, 6-2 to end the year last year after starting 1-6. I don't think that was an anomaly. I think that was a true testament to what they're going to do this upcoming year. And so that's kind of where things sit with that. The Bears are just atrocious. They're going to be terrible. Everyone wants to hype up, the Bears with DJ Moore and Justin Fields. Justin Fields is the classic highlight quarterback. He is a Lamar Jackson wannabe. Lamar Jackson is, in my opinion, a bit overrated. Just from where, not that he's bad, but just from where people claim him to be. Justin Fields had an awful turnover to interception ratio. I'm gonna just detail it for you guys real quick. Last year, for example, last year, Justin Fields, where is the man Justin Fields here? Justin Fields' completion percentage was 60% last year. The average is 64 in the NFL. For example, Justin Fields finished behind Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill, Kyler Murray, Andy Dalton, Matt Ryan, all these awful quarterbacks. He finished below them in completion percentage, had a terrible touchdown to interception ratio. Let me find that real quick. His TD to INT ratio was below Bailey Zappi, Cooper Rush, Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray. I mean, what on earth that screams to people that, oh, stud quarterback, he's going to take a year 3 leap this year and, lead them to a comparable passing offense. I mean, absolutely not. If I look at where this thing's glitching out, hold on. I can't read. What is happening here? Oh my God. Percentage. Did I just lose my whole graphic I was looking at? Like last year, if we look at yards per game passing, where's the man? The man was behind. He's so far down on the list, it's locked. I can find the stat if I looked up him specifically, but he was averaging about 150 passing yards a game. behind guys like Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ritter. Who here thinks Desmond Ritter is a great NFL quarterback? Mitch Trubisky, Baker Mayfield for the games Baker Mayfield played with the, who here thinks Deshaun Watson played well last year? No one. Behind Deshaun Watson in yards per game, behind Deshaun Watson in touchdown to interception ratio last year. I mean, behind Zach Wilson in yards per game. And also, the Bears were losing in every game. So it's not like they were winning and running the ball each time. Now, everyone's counter argument to this is that, oh, well, so-and-so is, he's a threat running the ball. And, late in games, it's outside of Jalen Hurts and his incredible success last year. Typically, running quarterbacks lack success late in the year, in January and February and late December. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson got down against the Titans in that 2019 MVP year. What do? He couldn't come back. So, and it wasn't like this was Justin Fields' rookie year. This is his second year. So, I just, the hype around him is totally overdone. There's no running game. Terrible offensive line. They did draft a rookie offensive lineman at 9th overall, but I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the hype around the Bears. I really don't. They made no substantial upgrades in free agency or in the draft for their defense that finished dead last in virtually every category last year. I mean, it was so bad. It's pathetic how terrible it was. So that's why the Bears are 4-13. I'm giving them a couple wins just out of respect for Justin Fields' running ability, because he will have some games like he did last year against the Dolphins and the Packers where he runs for about 500 yards, but per game in those few games, at least it felt like. But no, I mean, absolutely not. So 4-13 for them, roughly, maybe 5, maybe 3, but around there. Now, one of the win totals on this next screen is going to shock you guys, but I mean, maybe it won't, to be honest. We are witnessing, I'll go bottom to top, potentially one of the worst football teams that I've ever seen assembled in my lifetime. They're trading everyone on the roster. They're trading Isaiah Simmons last year on his contract. Kyler Murray will probably get dealt at some point this year because they're going to look to draft Caleb Williams. It's almost a shoo-in. They'll be the number one pick in the draft this upcoming year. There's, they traded out of the number 3 pick last year to draft Paris Johnson, the left tackle. You got Marquise Brown and James Conner, but James Conner's pushing 40, it feels like, at this point. I mean, how many years does he really have left in the tank? Zach Ertz coming off a torn ACL, Kyler coming off a torn ACL too. The Cardinals' best asset might not be anything they own specifically. It might be the fact that they have the Texans' first round pick this year. That might be their best asset, aside from obviously their own first round draft pick. They have a chance to go 1-2 in the draft this year with the Texans, who are projected to finish. I don't want you got to watch listen to the other episode to figure out where they exactly have them finishing, but in the division. But they might end up going 1-2 in the draft next year, with just how terrible the Cardinals and Texans will both be. Because Kyler, they left him on the PUP list, so he won't play for the first 4 games officially. So I mean, it's going to be a long year. The Rams are also not in a much better spot. Caveat, though, they do or not a caveat, just a point of notice. They do finally have their own first round pick this year for the first time in what feels like forever. I saw a rumor or report that in 2021, or might have even been last year, I forget, one of the 2 past years, they offered 2 first round picks that would have been this upcoming year and 2024 for Brian Burns. And that's great. Brian Burns is a great player for the Panthers off the edge, but still, I don't understand. They went all in, they won the Super Bowl. I mean, if you win a Super Bowl, no knock to what you do with your picks and your roster construction, but they are in a massive hole right now. I mean, not a lot of upside for them. You have, the 6 wins kind of comes out of perspective. They'll beat the Cardinals twice if the Cardinals suck. Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, who will combine for, Cooper Kupp will have 10 for 180 and 2 touchdowns, 1 game and end up winning. Aaron Donald will make some plays on defense. He'll be a game wrecker as he always is. No Jalen Ramsey this year. Not a ton of defensive talent around Aaron Donald. Stars noteworthy defensive talent, I should say. And so they're progressing towards a rebuild stage. I read rumors they wanted to restructure or trade Matt Stafford this year. Obviously didn't happen. So I can expect him to be gone in a year or 2. They'll reset. They'll draft a quarterback in the upcoming years. and we'll see how that goes. Number 2 in the division, the Seahawks, 10-6. Partially because I honestly, this has been a very accelerated rebuild. Partially to the Broncos being terrible and them getting rid of Russell Wilson right on time. Geno Smith, do I expect him to play as good as he did last year? Not entirely. Do I expect him to be comparable this year? Absolutely. 3 great weapons on the outside: DK, JSN, and Tyler Lockett. I know JSN just had wrist surgery. He'll be back around week 1 or 2. No real concern there. They have a young Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. A great O-line with Charles Cross at left tackle, Abraham Lucas at right tackle. Defensively, Jordan Brooks. You have Tariq Woolen, the absolute stud on the outside. They drafted last year, 5th round. He'll be a stud. Bobby Wagner's returning. Hopefully, he can give some veteran presence and leadership to the roster. And so they will be they'll be a respectable team. I see them beating, probably going 3-1 against the Rams and Cardinals combined, maybe 4-0, probably 0-2 against the Niners. Maybe they split against the Niners if they're lucky. But yeah, so that's kind of where I have the Seahawks. And then last of the Niners. The Niners, I almost wanted to have them go finish with a much better record, but couple problems. Nick Bosa, I'm concerned that he won't be there week 1. He's a necessity, not a luxury, but a necessity. The Niners have a great D-line though with Nick Bosa. They got Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, picked up Cleveland Farrell from the Raiders. Maybe he'll have something left in the tank. Former 1st-round draft pick, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, the Tua Funga, whatever the hell that guy's name is, the safety with the long hair, number 29. He's nice. They did lose Jimmy Ward. That could be a big loss in the nickel. But Diamador Lenore, Charvarius Ward, absolute stud of a defense. They finished number 1 in basically every defensive category last year. They'll be around that same spot again this year. The reason I don't have them with more wins, they play, in my opinion, because every NFC team is given 2 divisions, or every team is given 2 divisions they play. They're not their own division. They get the 2 best divisions, in my opinion. The AFC North, NFC East. They get the Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, Commanders, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals. That is concerning to me. On top of the first place schedule where they play some other first place teams, which include the Jaguars, and someone else. I forget who else it is, but that's a concern for me. That there's too many good games to where they won't necessarily finish high enough in the standings. Having said that, we'll see what happens. Now we have 10 seconds left. Oh, and then lastly, I expect Brock Purdy to be about what he was last year. He is coming off the elbow surgery, but that's not too much of a concern to me. It wasn't necessarily some huge deep ball threat anyway. He was more of a game manager. He's kind of like a play not to lose rather than a play to win quarterback type guy. So that's where I see that happening. 12-4, 11-6, or 12-5, 11-6, 13-4, right around there. So now we've got 6-7 minutes left in the show, everyone. We're gonna spend about 5 minutes on our quarterback rankings, which is much worse than the NFC. These quarterbacks, the AFC quarterbacks, are so much better considerably than the NFC. Than the AFC is concerning. Number 1, I think it's a no-brainer, Jalen Hurts. Number 2, everyone's gonna, this is a very hot take, but I'm telling you, Jared Goff. Something that I value extremely, as you can tell by listening to these shows and watching these shows, is, do you turn the ball over? 4th quarter, 8 minutes left. Are you making that drive? Are you turning it over? What are you doing? That's why I'm so against Justin Fields and Dak Prescott and guys like that. Even Kirk Cousins, for that matter. Although Kirk Cousins seemed to overcome a lot of those with all the 1-score wins last year. But that's why you have Jared Goff and Daniel Jones so high, because Jared Goff led the league with a 4.14 TD to INT ratio last year. That's why I'm so high on him. Combining that with that offense, I'm expecting a phenomenal year from Jared Goff. Daniel Jones, not that I think he's necessarily exceptional, but he plays to his strengths. He runs the ball, doesn't take a ton of sacks, doesn't turn the ball up, doesn't fumble the ball, doesn't throw interceptions. Throws a short game. They started 6-1, 7-1. You could fact check me on that. It's one of the two. They were 6-1 or 7-1. I know their second loss was to the Seahawks in Seattle last year. but it's right around there. Kirk Cousins, mainly because of what he's been able to do the last couple of years with Justin Jefferson. He adds Jordan Addison this year. I expect him to play about the same. They won 12 games last year, I believe is what it was. That you gotta put some respect on that. Geno Smith, a guy who led the league in completion percentage. Again, Jalen Hurts, high completion percentage. Daniel Jones, high completion percentage. Jared Goff, middle of the road completion percentage. But Geno Smith, good TD to INT ratio. If I look at it exactly, I don't want to get it wrong. Geno Smith was where does it show? Geno Smith had a. I'm sorry. What is happening here? Geno Smith, where is it? It's right here. 2.75. So basically above guys like Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. Just a touch below guys like Daniel Jones had a 3 TD to INT ratio. That's great. Brock Purdy 3.25. That's why I see him at number 6. Doesn't turn the ball over. Jalen Hurts 3.67 and Jared Goff 4.14. Do I think Brock Purdy's great? No, I think it's mostly a defensive carry job there, if we're being honest. But if you had a guy in there like Dak Prescott who might be turning the ball over a lot, that might hurt your defense. Give the opposing offense a shorter field, get more field goals and touchdowns, and then you might lose some more games by that. So that's kind of where I stand with the quarterbacks. You're probably, and everyone's going to wonder, where is Justin Fields? Why is he not, number 2, number 3, number 4? If you want to rewind about 10 minutes, you can hear my 5-minute soliloquy on him. The lack of a passing game threat. He is strictly a runner in wearing number 1 out there. It's basically like it's a quarterback power, like it's a wildcat formation with Justin Fields every play. I believe he can. I forgot the stat. I have to look it up. I don't have it with me. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, there was a stat where he completed it was 7 or 11 or 12 passes or something like absurd in the first 2 or 3 games last year, to where it was almost unbelievable in a bad way how terrible it was. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe he'll turn into a competent passer this year. I don't know. Stay around. There might be a topic on that coming up in a second. So that's kind of where we sit on that. No other. I mean, can Bryce Young be a surprise rookie? Maybe. I think he'll be good in the future. Not necessarily right away. I think it'll be a year or 2 for him until he can get some better weapons. Jonathan Mingo might be okay. Adam Thielen's basically done. DJ Chark is kind of meh. This might be a year where they draft a receiver in the 2nd round. They have no 1st-round pick. Due to the Bears having it for next year. Maybe they'll draft a receiver in the 2nd or 3rd or whatever. Coming up. Also losing DJ Moore. So, but lastly, as we did with our AFC episode, we're going to finish off with our 3 conference wildcards. No bonus one today, just for the NFC, just 3. Number 1, will Brock Purdy continue to play clean football and lead the Niners to scoring drives? That was what made him, in my opinion, so great last year, was that the man didn't turn the ball over. Pretty much. Threw 4 interceptions, I believe. And one of those was the Eagles interception in the playoff game. One of those was a bad pass over the middle of the Raiders. I forget the other 2, but if he can have around a 3.5, a 4 TD to INT ratio with the exceptional Niners defense, this will be a stud roster. It'll be a team that wins, 12, 13, 11 games, barring any sort of catastrophic injuries for any key piece. So that, that's one wild card. Does he, is he a pick and a half per game? Is he a pick and a fumble per game? Given the offense, short fields and so forth. I don't know. We'll have to find out after it was a slightly small sample size last year. Number 2, as I mentioned, as I foreshadowed, will Justin Fields take a leap as a passer and become a competent thrower in the pass game? I don't know. That would unlock his running ability even more to where it's more of a threat and more of a surprise than it is a expectation for the defense, which will only make them more of a threat offensively to help out their terrible defense, which could potentially give them more wins. It does not mean they're going to be a playoff team, even if he is, but it might mean they go from 3, 4, 5 wins to 7, 8, 9 wins. In that sense. And lastly, we saw the New York Giants kind of tail off at the end of last year after their crazy hot 6-1, 7-1 start. I forget what it was. I'm sorry. Do we see now that they did beat the Vikings in their first playoff game, which is a shocker to me? I thought the Vikings would win that game. But do we see the first 8 weeks of the Giants this year, or do we see the last 8 weeks of the Giants this year? That's a wild card for me. I expect about a middle of both, kind of like about a 500 team for them this year is what I expect. But that's gonna be it for today's episode. I appreciate everyone watching and listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment down below any comments or concerns or disagreements. Obviously, we know I'm never wrong. I might be right, but I'm never wrong. But tell me where you think I went wrong, even though I'm never wrong. And then feel free to mention where you believe I went right, obviously. And then if you're watching on or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, thank you for listening. And be sure to drop a follow or subscription or whatever it's called on whatever platform you're watching on. And thank you very much. I appreciate everyone tuning in. And stay tuned for Wednesday's episode, 8:30 August 30th, which is the whole playoff predictions and everything regarding that. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a good night.